Hey, it's Samantha, and you're in the right place if you are leading safe and healthy work in the boardroom or C-suite. This is my first YouTube video on health and safety governance and leadership. I hope you enjoy, and I look forward to serving you with valuable content that helps business leaders know what to ask and when to act. Today I'm going to dissect the Australian Institute of Company Directors, better known as the AICD, first half 2018 Director Sentiment Report. The report is based on feedback from an AICD survey of 945 of its members in March this year. I've been monitoring this report with interest over the last year, as I feel it's an outcome of the current state of director interest in health and safety in Australia, and I would argue in many other countries. So why should business leaders stop and listen? Well, this is the third consecutive report where respondents have identified health and safety as having a negative impact on business productivity, and where respondents have not identified worker health and safety as something that keeps them awake at night. I find both of these positions quite interesting because from an observer's perspective, it would appear respondents are either not as concerned about the health and safety of workers in their business as one would expect, or they're overly comfortable, which can create blind spots. However, where they are concerned about health and safety, it's unfortunately from a negative and frustrated perspective. So today, I want to run through why these mindsets are not helpful in leading safe and healthy work in the boardroom. Better yet, they're misinformed. Secondly, I want to provide some context for directors to walk away from this video and be able to speak confidently as to how health and safety is good for business. So let's get started. Firstly, a bit more context about the survey respondents. They included executive directors, non-executive directors, chairpersons, and a few other roles that were not specified in the report, across public and private Australian entities, not-for-profit, public government bodies, and a small proportion of respondents were from overseas. The survey was open for just under 2 weeks in March this year. So in terms of the first question, where health and safety was represented in the survey, which of the following issues are most likely to keep you awake at night? Let's take a minute to look at the responses. Now, I don't begin to question that sustainability and long-term growth prospects are definitely a key issue for any business. It's a key issue for my business as well. So putting that particular response aside, let's move to the next important issue that keeps directors awake at night: structural change or the changing of business models. This issue can be caused by a number of variables which can derail a business strategy, its value proposition, and on. So it rightfully sits high on the board's agenda. But as we move down the scale, we could probably expect that there is room for health and safety to be on one of the top 5 issues that keep directors awake at night. Now, health and safety could have been mentioned by the 6% in the other field, but even still, 6% is concerning. Now, I've provided 3 arguments as to why health and safety is not on the list. Directors are either quietly comfortable with health and safety performance in their business and therefore not concerned, or they are simply not interested in the general health and safety of those in their business or those impacted by their business, for example, the public, and are therefore also not concerned. Or we accept that the reason why health and safety doesn't rate on the scale is because it wasn't offered as a potential response in the drop-down menu, and therefore didn't trigger many directors to give it priority. Now, I don't think that directors are intentionally unconcerned with the health and safety of their workers or the public, so I'm not even going to expand on that as a possibility. The third option as to why health and safety did not rate on the top 5 issues that keep directors awake at night, being that the drop-down menu didn't have health and safety as an option, is something the AICD can easily address if they want to assist directors in leading safe and healthy work. So again, I'm not going to expand on that option. It's the first option that I want to break down and provide some commentary, again, under the premise that, as I mentioned earlier, I want to assist directors in speaking confidently as to how health and safety is good for business and how they can lead safe and healthy work in the boardroom. It is a common understanding amongst safety climate and culture researchers and generalist health and safety professionals and practitioners that business leaders should always have a chronic sense of unease when it comes to workplace health and safety. In a paper written by the Centre for Safety in Western Australia, a chronic unease refers to the experience of discomfort and concern about the management of risks. And this sense of unease can be channeled to have a positive impact on safety. So from a board perspective, having a sense of unease is a healthy skepticism about how your decisions in the boardroom impact on health and safety outcomes in the business. You also understand that there are inherent risks in the work environment and situations that spring up on a day-to-day basis that cause one to make decisions. Those decisions can impact one's health and safety or the health and safety of others. This means that directors need to have a chronic unease and be wary and ready for the unexpected. The chronic unease is why health and safety should rate in the top 5 of what keeps directors awake at night. So now let's look at the second question where health and safety was mentioned in the AICD survey. That 73% of directors feel that health and safety is seen as red tape that has a negative impact on productivity. It is my goal to shift the mindset of those directors who think of health and safety as merely a legal or compliance risk or red tape hindering productivity, to seeing health and safety as good for business and a strategic risk. Let me take a second to explain why health and safety is a strategic risk to any business. Safe and healthy work can deliver real and competitive and strategic advantage for organizations, but it can also have a significant negative impact on an organization's financial performance, license to operate, retention of talent, shareholder interest, loss of productivity, to name a few. A report by Goldman Sachs JB Ware found valuation links between workplace health and safety factors and investment performance. Specifically, they found that investors could have increased their return over a 4-year period had they incorporated work health and safety measures into their investment strategy. And research by Citibank through the Safety Spotlight report shows that more and more investors are interested in the health and safety performance of organizations when making investment decisions. On the other hand, poor health and safety performance can have a significant negative impact on your strategic and competitive advantage and license to operate. For example, one only needs to look at the corporate damage from the Me Too movement, such as shareholder litigation in the USA or the drop in stock prices from companies like Wynn Resorts. Or let's look at financial costs to BHP, when its shares slumped to a 10-year low after the tailings dam broke at their half-owned Samarco iron ore mine in Brazil that killed 19 people. Let me explain why safe and healthy work contributes positively to productivity now. When you invest in health and safety and improve workplace well-being, a virtuous circle is created. Workforce well-being encourages worker engagement and motivation, thus improving productivity, reducing costs, which ultimately leads to increased profits. In a 2001 report by the ACIRRT at the University of Sydney and supported by the Business Council of Australia, researchers found that when identifying what makes an excellent workplace, it was not possible to separate excellence in safety systems and the creation of a culture of safety from the wider sense of excellence in the workplace. The report states that an unsafe workplace cannot be an excellent workplace. Excellence and safety are intertwined and connected at the root. So let's look at the indirect costs of poor health and safety performance, such as the obvious. More injuries and illnesses mean that more people take time off or a loss in productivity from more people being involved in incident investigations, those that are off, or training activities, or productivity loss from equipment being replaced or serviced, or increased scrutiny from the regulator, which requires a lot of manpower to navigate answering their questions, accompanying them on site, complying with their documentation requests, and don't underestimate the amount of time wasted by the board in getting up to speed and monitoring the needs and inquiry from the regulator. There's also potential loss in retention of staff, because who wants to work in a place where people are getting hurt or ill? And this loss of staff then incurs costs of recruitment and training new staff. All of this is why directors need to shift their mindset from seeing health and safety as a mere compliance risk or red tape that hinders their productivity, to that of health and safety being seen as good for business and a strategic risk. Now I'd like to hear from you. What's the most important insight that you're taking away from this video? And most importantly, what can you do to turn that insight into action? Leave a comment below and let me know. Now, if you like this video, be sure to give me a thumbs up below and subscribe to this channel to get a weekly dose of what to ask and when to act. If you're interested in diving further into content like this head over to my blog on smsafetysolutions.com.au. While you're there, be sure to sign up to my email list to get notified of more good stuff on health and safety governance and leadership. Many thanks for watching. See you next time.